time to raise some of the issues that are happening on the southwest border. I'd ask unanimous consent to insert my full statement in the record, and I'll just—
Without objection.
Thank you. I'll summarize some of my remarks here. We have an incredible situation, as we all know, happening on the border today. We've had thousands and thousands of kids cross the border. In fact, from May 1 to 1st of May, there were 148,017 apprehensions. Of those, a significant number were, and this is just the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, significant number of those were unaccompanied minors. In fact, so many, we didn't have the capacity to deal with them there. Many, to the great chagrin of many in Arizona, were shipped to Arizona to process and then release in the custody of a guardian or someone. The Border Patrol and others are trying to make the best of a very tragic and unfortunate circumstance, and I don't think anybody faults them for the big burden that they have, and I think they're doing the best that they can. But what this situation really points up is that not only do we have insufficient resources on the border itself to deal with those trying to cross, but once people get here, we have insufficient resources, infrastructure, policies to actually deal with them in a timely fashion. They're actually released, most of them, and asked to appear at a later date. It's estimated that quite a few don't. In fact, very few will show up at their court date. What are we to do here? We've obviously, those of us who have dealt with this situation for a long time, those of us from border states, have advocated broad legislation to deal with border security, guest worker plans, mechanisms to deal with those who are here illegally now, employer enforcement, many items. But if we can't get to that yet, I wish we could, but if we can't get to that yet, then we need to have better policies dealing with those who have come across the border and that we're going to hold. If we're going to grant them asylum, or some of them, then that needs to be done. If not, we can't just assume that we're going to release them and assume that they'll come back at their court date or at their appointed time. So this is the situation we have to deal with. One thing we need to address immediately is to try to stem the tide for those that are coming. Interviews suggest overwhelmingly, in fact, one case, there were 250 crossers during a week period or 2-week period into Texas. And I believe 95% of them indicated that the main motivation for them coming across the border, and this is largely unaccompanied minors, was that they would be granted some kind of legal status that would allow them to stay. Now, this is contrary to our law. This is contrary to the President's Deferred Action program. To qualify for that program, you would have had to have been here for 7 years. You can't just arrive today or yesterday or tomorrow and qualify for this program. Nor was it contemplated by any legislation that's been passed by either body. The legislation that we passed in the Senate does not allow those who come now to stay. You will have had to have been here since, I believe, December of 2011. But what is happening is cartel members, human smugglers, others are misinterpreting or willingly telling people that they will receive some kind of legal status when they come. And too many people believe that, particularly from the countries of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Some suggest that it's just economic conditions or violence in those countries that are driving people northward. That, no doubt, has some truth to it. There are some who come for those reasons. But we've seen a massive spike just in the last couple of months that can't be explained by economic conditions or violence in those countries. It's because they believe they will be afforded some legal status. Myself, Senator McCain, and many others in this body have raised this with the administration and have asked the administration to make it clear that those who come now will not be allowed to stay. And I have a letter that has been I think this is an advertisement or has been translated into Spanish and is being circulated in the affected countries from Secretary Jay Johnson of the Department of Homeland Security. It's a good letter. It says the right things. I'm glad that we've taken that step. Vice President Joe Biden was in those countries telling those in charge and others that those who come now will not be allowed to stay. They will be deported. That's a good thing. We need to keep that up. But what we really need right now is for the President, for President Obama himself, to make such a statement. In all deference to the Vice President and the Secretary of Homeland Security, they simply don't carry the weight of the President of the United States making a statement and then following up that statement with a concerted effort in those countries to let people know they shouldn't come north. That would make a tremendous difference. So I would call upon the President to make such a statement and to follow up that statement with efforts in these countries to make sure that people understand this. First and foremost, we need to stem the tide of those coming. It's estimated that this year there could be as many as 90,000 unaccompanied minors come across the border. That figure may be higher next year. And we've got to stem that tide and then quickly figure out how we can deal with those who cross the border and that we apprehend, because we simply don't now have the infrastructure or policies that allow us to deal with them in a rational, humane way. And so I would call upon the President to make such a statement. I yield back the balance of my time.